It was supposed to be an ordinary summer afternoon, the kind filled with ice cream, sunscreen, and splashes. In a quiet suburban backyard, the pool shimmered beneath the sun, untouched by the chaos that was about to unfold. But behind the picture-perfect peace, something hidden was brewing. Jake, just 12, stood motionless at the edge of the water, his expression cold, distant, watching. Just a few feet away, his little black stepsister Maya laughed and splashed, unaware. She was only 4. To everyone else, she was a blessing, a bright light in the family. To Jake, she was something else entirely. Resentment festered, jealousy ignited, and in one unthinkable moment, he snapped. Without a word, he reached out. One push, 1 second of silence. Splash. Maya vanished beneath the surface. Tiny hands, tiny curls, gone. The pool swallowed her screams. There were no witnesses, no alarms, no one running to help, just stillness. And Jake, standing frozen in the sunlight, dripping ice cream, breathing shallow. But while the family was unaware, one thing was not: exposed, caught, recorded. High above, perched on the garage wall, a small black security camera blinked red, unblinking, watching, the footage already captured. This wasn't just a mistake. It was a moment that would go viral, a moment that would shatter trust, spark controversy, and force a broken family into the spotlight. Because what Jake didn't know was that the camera saw everything. Forgiveness or consequences, what happens next will shock you. The water settled far too quickly. Jake stood frozen at the edge of the pool, his bare feet planted like anchors, his eyes locked on the surface that had just swallowed Maya whole. The faint splashes were gone now, instantly replaced by stillness, and then screams. His stepmom's voice sliced through the air, raw and frantic. "Where's Maya?" Jake blinked, his mouth dry. He didn't answer. He couldn't. The weight of what he'd done pressed against his chest like a concrete block. A sound escaped from inside the house, footsteps pounding across the patio. His dad appeared, eyes scanning the yard like searchlights. "Jake?" The voice cracked. "Where is she?" But Jake still didn't move. The world around him had shattered, but the real explosion was inside. Something deep, something long hidden. This wasn't just about today. This was years in the making. A birthday party, balloons, laughter. Jake sat at the table with the wrapped gift on his lap. He'd drawn it himself, a picture of him and his dad fishing, just like they used to. But Dad never opened it. He was too busy holding Maya, who sat in his arms with frosting on her cheeks and a crown on her head. "She's such a blessing," someone whispered. Jake heard that, and he never forgot it. Not once had anyone ever called him a blessing. Back in the present, the panic rose. Stepmom sprinted toward the pool, her eyes wide, scanning for any sign of the little girl. Dad dropped his phone, dove in head first. Jake's breath grew shallow. Every second stretched like forever. He wanted to scream, to confess, to do something, but all he could feel was guilt and fear, crushing, suffocating fear. His legs locked, his arms were numb. He watched, neglected even by his own conscience. Then movement, a bark echoed across the yard. The neighbor's golden retriever burst through the hedges, drawn by the chaos. Without hesitation, the dog plunged into the water, paddling hard toward the center, and there, floating near the middle, was Maya, limp, still, her curls barely above the waterline. The dog reached her, tugged at her shirt collar, and dragged her toward the steps. A moment later, Maya emerged, coughing violently, water spilling from her mouth. Her cries came next, piercing, heartbreaking cries that cut through everything. Dad reached her first. Stepmom followed, wrapping the soaked child in her arms, sobbing. And Jake, he stood apart, invisible in plain sight. Wait till you see WHO pulled her out of the water. Do you think Jake should speak up now or stay silent forever? Comment your answer below before you hear what happens next. Jake didn't move, even as his stepmom screamed Maya's name through gasps of tears, even as his dad clutched the coughing child against his chest. Jake stood rooted to the pavement, his fists clenched, jaw trembling, not from the cold but from the truth settling in like lead. No one looked at him, not one glance. They were too caught up in the chaos. too focused on saving the child who just moments ago was sinking beneath the surface, and maybe that was the most painful part. Even now, especially now, he was still ignored. The living room. Late evening. Jake peeked through the cracked door. His dad lay on the couch, Maya curled on his chest, both asleep under a blanket. The TV played softly in the background. Jake stood there with the Lego set in hand. He'd built a car all by himself. He was proud of it. He wanted to show it. But Dad didn't wake up, didn't hear him, didn't even know Jake was there. He turned and walked back to his room, setting the toy gently on his shelf next to a growing lineup of unnoticed moments. Back in the present, a voice pulled him back. His stepmom, shaking, still holding Maya, turned sharply to Jake. "You were supposed to be watching her." Those words struck like a slap across the face. I didn't see," Jake stammered finally. But the sentence trailed off, because the truth was, he had seen. Every second, every splash, every breath. His father didn't say a word. His eyes met Jake's, sharp, unreadable, broken. Then he looked away. It was worse than yelling, worse than rage. It was the look of someone who didn't know who their son was anymore. The neighbor came running through the gate, breathless, having heard the commotion. She called the dog Hero, and rushed toward the family. "Is she okay? What happened?" Jake took a step back, each voice around him blurred. The world grew heavy and different, like he was watching someone else's life unfold. He hadn't meant to really hurt her, had he? Maybe he just wanted someone to notice him, to feel like he still mattered, to not be replaced. His dad carried Maya inside. Stepmom followed, whispering comforts between sobs. Jake stood alone by the pool. No one told him to come inside. No one asked if he was okay, and still, no one knew what he had done. Not yet. Inside the house, the sound of Maya's coughing echoed down the hallway. Jake remained outside, the pool behind him like a mirror reflecting everything he couldn't take back. He looked up just for a second, and saw it. The camera, still, silent, watching. Its tiny red light blinked steadily. His stomach dropped. He hadn't noticed it before, not when it mattered. But now, it felt like that small blinking light was exposing everything he had tried to hide. Caught, not by his parents, not by Maya, by a lens that never looked away. A few weeks earlier, Jake stood at the kitchen counter. His stepmom had just finished wiping Maya's face with a napkin after lunch. She was laughing like it was the happiest sound in the world. His dad reached over and kissed Maya's forehead. "She's my little miracle," he said softly. Jake was right there, and yet, somehow, completely invisible. Back in the present, Jake walked quietly to the corner of the yard, sitting on the ground with his knees pulled tight to his chest. Inside, Maya was safe now, wrapped in blankets, breathing, loved. But Jake was unraveling in silence. His thoughts churned fast, messy, painful. Would they ever forgive him? Would they even want to? Or was this the beginning of something worse, something he couldn't undo? He rubbed his arms, but the chill came from within. He knew the camera saw him, knew it recorded the moment, and sooner or later, someone was going to watch it. Everything he thought was secret revealed, every impulse he hoped would stay hidden, exposed. The house door creaked open behind him. Jake didn't turn. His dad's voice was quiet, firm. "Come inside." Jake stood slowly. The camera watched, the guilt followed, and the truth was coming. If the footage shows the truth, should Jake be punished or helped? Comment punished or helped to tell us where you stand before the video goes viral.
The morning after the rescue, the house was quiet, but not calm. Jake sat at the kitchen table, stirring his cereal without ever lifting the spoon to his mouth. Across from him, Maya sat wrapped in a fuzzy blanket, sipping from a sippy cup, her eyes still red from the night before. She hadn't said a word to him. Neither had their parents. The silence wasn't peaceful. It was waiting. Jake's father walked in holding his phone, his expression blank, focused. He opened the security app, checked the saved footage from the backyard, and then he stopped breathing. There it was, the moment. Jake reaching out, Jake shoving, Maya falling, the sound of the splash, the stillness, the unthinkable. His dad didn't say anything right away. He just set the phone on the counter and left the room. Jake knew. He knew what had just been exposed. Later that day, someone uploaded the clip. It didn't take long.
The title was brutal. Boy pushes little girl into pool. Watch what he does next. The video instantly spread, shared, commented, ripped apart by people who didn't know them at all, but had something to say. This kid's dangerous. He needs to be locked up. Is this racial? That boy looks like he meant it. She's black. That wasn't an accident. Where are the parents? Blended families are never easy, but this is beyond. It wasn't just Jake on screen anymore, it was everyone. Their whole family labeled, judged and called out. The clip had only been up for an hour, and already had 50,000 views. Jake scrolled through the comments, each one hitting harder than the last. His hands shook, his eyes blurred. He'd been caught, not just by the camera, by the world. His stepmom entered the room, her face pale, eyes rimmed red. She didn't yell, she didn't ask why, she just looked at him, and that was worse than any confrontation. Then his father came in, phone still in his hand. "You want to tell us what that was?" he said quietly. Jake couldn't speak. His heart thudded against his ribs like it was trying to get out. The truth was about to break free, whether he was ready or not. Jake stood at the center of the living room, his parents sitting across from him, rigid, silent, shattered. The weight of the video, the comments, the labels now tied to his name, aggressive, dangerous, racist, clung to him like a stain he couldn't scrub off. He didn't want to speak, but the silence felt like drowning. "I didn't want to hurt her," he started, his voice barely more than a whisper. "I swear I didn't." His stepmom didn't respond. Jake's eyes welled, but he pushed forward, words tumbling out faster now, raw, unfiltered, desperate. I wanted Dad to see me, like he sees her." The sentence hung in the air, heavy, heartbreaking. "She's always with you, you're always holding her, laughing with her, you don't even see me anymore." His voice cracked. "When she came, it was like I didn't matter." He paused, swallowing hard. "I wasn't trying to hurt her, I just wanted someone to notice me, even if it was for something bad." Tears streamed down his face now, full and unstoppable, no longer hidden, no longer held back. Across from him, his stepmom's mouth parted slightly. The anger on her face twisted, no longer rage, but something deeper. Grief. Betrayal. She stood slowly. "I trusted you," she said, voice shaking. "I left her with you." Jake flinched. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't have to. Those 4 words hit harder than anything else. His dad hadn't moved. His face was unreadable, but his hands, trembling, clutched the phone tighter. Jake looked at him. Nothing. No defense. No comfort. Not even disappointment. Just stillness. Like even he didn't know what to do. Jake's knees buckled and he dropped to the floor, sobbing into his hands. He wasn't just crying for what he did. He was crying for everything that came before it. All the nights he felt invisible. All the moments he felt replaced. All the love he used to know. Slipping further out of reach. The video didn't slow down. By the next morning, it had crossed 1 million views. Comment sections turned into battlegrounds. "Lock that boy up." Where was the supervision? You can see the jealousy in his face. Blended families can be dangerous. Why didn't he just ask for attention? It's because she's black, isn't it? The narrative had been written for them. By strangers. By hashtags. By algorithms that didn't care about context. Jake had become a headline. And their family, a debate. Back in the house the damage wasn't loud. It was worse. Quiet. Maya stayed close to her stepmom, flinching whenever Jake entered the room. Jake avoided everyone, pacing the hallway, then stopping, then pacing again, like a boy trapped inside the walls of his own mistake. His stepmom didn't yell anymore. She barely spoke to him at all, but it was her silence that hurt the most. And Jake's dad. He stood at a crossroads between his son and his family. "I don't know what to say to you," he told Jake that night, eyes red with exhaustion. "You don't have to say anything," Jake whispered, voice flat. The truth had come out, and with it, the distance between them only grew. Later in the living room, Jake sat alone on the floor with the tablet in his lap, reading more comments he shouldn't be reading. This kid needs help, not handcuffs. Where's the dad in all this? If they forgive him, they're insane. Jake locked the screen, then stared at his reflection in the dark glass. His eyes were puffy, his cheeks stained, his hands still trembled sometimes, especially when he thought about Maya's screams. He wasn't a monster, but that's not what the world saw, and maybe that's not what his parents saw anymore either. Upstairs, Maya asked her stepmom the one question no one was ready to answer. Is Jakey still my brother? Her stepmom didn't answer right away. She simply held Maya tighter and closed her eyes. The internet wanted punishment. The family wanted answers. Can a family survive after trust has been broken this badly? Tell us below. Would you fight to heal, or let it go? The storm outside had passed, but inside the house everything felt broken. In the quiet of Maya's room, the soft glow of a nightlight painted her tiny face with flickers of warmth. She clutched a stuffed giraffe to her chest, blinking up at her stepmom, who sat beside her silent, arms tight around her body like a barrier. Then Maya asked it, the question no parent ever wants to hear. Why did Jakey push me? The air seemed to stop moving. Her stepmom didn't respond at first. She looked at her daughter, the same little girl she had carried through custody hearings, long nights, lullabies, scraped knees and first birthdays. Did he not want me to be here? Maya asked again. That's when the tears came. Not Maya's, her stepmom's. Hot, silent, endless. She had believed love would be enough, that if she loved both her children, her black daughter, her white stepson with the same energy, everything would fall into place. But it hadn't. Love wasn't the problem. The problem was what hadn't been said. The feelings that were hidden, ignored, buried deep. She hugged Maya tighter, whispering only one word. No. Downstairs, Jake sat on the couch, fidgeting with the frayed seam of his shorts. His phone was gone, his laptop locked away. The screens that once distracted him from his own feelings were now gone. His dad paced the kitchen in silence before finally stopping, turning to face the boy who still carried the face of the son he used to toss in the air and call his champ. We failed you, he said flatly. Jake looked up, startled. His dad sat down heavily across from him. I thought pretending there was no tension would help, he said. I thought if we ignored it, it would pass. Jake's eyes welled again. But it didn't. No, his dad said. It got worse, and we let it. In the hallway, his stepmom stood listening, caught between two truths. She loved Maya. She feared for her, but she also saw Jake now, not as a threat, but as a boy who'd been left behind. And as hard as it was to admit, the truth was this. They'd all played a part in what happened. The living room was dim now. Jake's stepmom stood by the wall, arms crossed tight across her chest, her eyes locked on him. His dad sat in the armchair, head down, elbows on knees, not moving. Jake remained seated. His eyes were puffy, tired, but he didn't look away. I'm not a bad person, he said, voice low. His stepmom stepped forward, slowly, cautiously, like approaching a stranger instead of a child she'd once tried to call her own. You pushed my baby into a pool, she said, voice trembling. You let her almost drown. Jake's throat tightened. I know. Then help me understand, she said, because I'm trying. I am. But right now all I see is a boy who looked at my black daughter like she didn't belong. The room fell into painful silence. I didn't push her because she's black, Jake said, quickly. No, she answered. But don't pretend race hasn't shaped this family from the beginning. Don't pretend being different didn't change the way you saw her or how you saw yourself. Jake blinked hard like her words stung more than he expected. She's not different to me, he said. But the world sees her that way, she replied. And deep down so did you. Jake's dad finally spoke. We all did. His voice was steady now, no longer defensive but exposed, honest. We thought love meant treating you both the same, but it didn't work. Because you weren't feeling the same. You felt replaced. Maya felt ignored. And we never asked either of you how any of it felt. Jake dropped his head into his hands. His voice cracked. I just wanted to be noticed. You were, his stepmom said quietly. But after what you did, you're not just noticed now. You're labeled. Jake looked up, tears running again. Her silence was long. Finally she nodded once. There might be, but not without truth, and not without help. Jake's dad leaned forward. Therapy. For all of us. Starting this week. Jake nodded. Slowly. And you're grounded, his stepmom added. No screens. No distractions. Just real conversations. Real work. Jake didn't argue. He just said, Okay. Upstairs, Maya sat at the edge of her bed, knees tucked under her blanket, staring out the window. The sun had started to fade, and with it the world outside looked quiet again. She didn't know everything that had happened downstairs, but she felt it. Her giraffe lay beside her, its head drooping just like hers. When her stepmom entered, Maya didn't turn. After a pause she finally asked, "Did I do something wrong?" Her stepmom's heart cracked in two. She sat down beside her daughter, brushing a hand gently over Maya's curls. "No, baby," she whispered. "You did nothing wrong." "Then why doesn't Jakey like me?" It was the question no one wanted her to ask, because it came from a place deeper than logic. It came from feeling betrayed by someone she trusted, someone she saw as her big brother. Her stepmom searched for the truth. Jakey's confused, and he's hurt, and when people don't know what to do with their pain, sometimes they pass it on. But that's not your fault. Am I different? Maya asked softly. Her stepmom held her tighter. You're beautiful. You're loved. And yes, you're different. But so is he. So am I. And different doesn't mean less. It just means we all have more to learn. Maya didn't answer right away. Then she nodded. Slowly, quietly. Downstairs, Jake sat alone in his room. His door open, but no one coming in. The sounds of the house were soft. No yelling. No chaos. But also no comfort. He stared at the blank wall, tracing the outline of a picture that used to hang there. A photo of him and his dad from years ago, smiling at the lake. He'd taken it down last week, when everything started to feel different. Now that space felt empty. Not just the wall. Him. His dad passed by the hallway, stopping for a moment outside Jake's door. He didn't step in, but he didn't walk away either. Tomorrow, he said, without turning, we start over. With the truth. Jake nodded, even though his dad couldn't see it. Is this the end of their family? Or the beginning of something harder, but better? If healing takes time, how long would you wait to forgive someone who broke your trust? Drop your answer below, because the next chapter begins with rebuilding.
Jake sat across from the therapist with his arms crossed and his eyes fixed on the floor. He didn't speak. Not at first. The room was quiet, too quiet. His dad sat beside him, hands clasped tightly, as if holding himself together was a full-time job. His stepmom sat on Jake's other side. She wasn't crying, not today. But her silence felt heavier than words. The therapist, a woman in her 40s with a soft voice and sharper questions, finally asked, "Jake, can you tell me what you were feeling that day?" He shrugged. "Nothing." "Try again," she said gently. A long pause. Then, just one word, jealousy. The first word was followed by another, left out. Then a whisper, invisible. She nodded. "That's a start." Jake looked down again. "She called Maya his blessing," he mumbled. "Nobody ever called me that." His father's jaw tightened. The truth stung, but it wasn't new. The therapist leaned forward just slightly. "Did you feel like you were being replaced?" Jake nodded. Every time they hugged her. His dad looked away. Back at home, Maya sat at the kitchen table with crayons spread out in front of her. She was drawing. On one side of the paper, a blue pool, a girl with brown curls, tears under her eyes. On the other, a boy with a blank face standing far away, but between them, drawn in thick purple crayon, two stick figures holding hands. "Who's that?" her stepmom asked gently. Maya smiled. "Me and Jakey, when we're okay again." Her stepmom couldn't speak. She just kissed the top of Maya's head and held it all in. The next therapy session wasn't easier, but Jake spoke more. "She's not stealing, Dad," he said, eyes low. "She's just here too." That moment cracked something open. Not broken, but revealed. It wasn't a fix. It wasn't forgiveness. But it was a start. The first group session didn't begin with words. It began with silence. Jake sat between his parents on a long gray couch, back stiff, hands buried deep in his hoodie pocket. Across from them, Maya curled into her stepmom's side, quiet but watching everything. The therapist broke the silence. "We're here today not to judge, not to punish, but to be honest." Nobody moved. "Sometimes," she continued, "hurt gets passed around when it stays unspoken." Jake blinked slowly. Maya reached for her giraffe. "Let's start with Maya," the therapist said gently. "What do you want to say?" The room held its breath.
Maya looked at Jake, not with fear but with something more complicated. Confusion, sadness, maybe even hope. You were supposed to be my big brother, she said. Jake's chest tightened. I thought you liked me. I did, he replied quickly. I still do. Then why did you push me? Jake swallowed hard. I didn't know how to say I felt left out. I was scared. Scared that if Dad loved you, there wouldn't be enough left for me. Maya didn't speak again. She just hugged her giraffe tighter. The therapist turned to Jake's stepmom. She inhaled deeply, then let it out. I never wanted you to feel pushed aside, she said to Jake. I thought if I just kept loving you, it would all come together. Her voice cracked. But I didn't ask how you were really feeling, and that's on me. Jake's eyes dropped. I felt ignored, he said. I was scared to be resented, she admitted. They met eyes. For the first time in weeks, something passed between them that wasn't silence. Later, in a second session, Jake was given a simple assignment: draw his family. He paused before he started. And then, slowly, he drew Maya holding hands with both parents, and Jake standing a step behind them. Not gone, not pushed away, just finding his place again. Weeks passed. The house was still quiet, but not the kind of silence that screamed. This silence was slower, softer, full of unspoken effort. Jake no longer hid in his room. But he didn't force his presence either. He hovered in hallways, on staircases, just outside open doors, waiting to be let back in. Maya watched him sometimes from the couch. She'd say nothing, then go back to her coloring book, but every now and then she'd color an extra stick figure next to her giraffe. Sometimes, it was smiling. Play therapy became part of their weekly rhythm. It started awkwardly. Jake didn't know how to play on cue, and Maya didn't know if she should trust him again. But the therapist was patient. She placed soft toys between them. One session, Maya picked up 2 bears. This one's me, she said, holding up the smaller one. She glanced at Jake, hesitant, then pushed the larger bear toward him. You can be this one again. Jake nodded slowly. He didn't speak, but he didn't pull away either. They played in silence. And that silence, it was finally safe. At home, Jake's dad helped him put the old photo back on his wall, the one from the lake. Jake looked at it for a long time. Do you think I'll ever be that kid again? He asked. His dad didn't rush an answer. No, he said honestly, but I think you can be someone even better. Jake didn't cry. He just nodded. And for the first time in a long time, it felt true. Later that week, Maya climbed up next to Jake while he was reading. She sat close enough that their arms touched, but said nothing. Jake glanced at her, then closed his book. I missed you, he said quietly. Maya nodded. Me too. There were no tears, no dramatic hugs, just a quiet shared moment between 2 kids trying to believe in second chances. Healing isn't instant, but it's possible when everyone stops pretending. Do you believe real change starts with apology, or with action? Comment apology or action below as this family rebuilds from the inside out. Should a 12-year-old be cancelled, or counseled? That question, bold and unfiltered, appeared on a popular parenting blog just 1 week after Jake's video passed 3 million views. Everyone had an opinion. Most had never met Jake. Some hadn't even watched the full video, but that didn't stop them. At school, whispers came before the first bell. Jake stepped into the hallway, and the noise hit him instantly. Not shouting, but murmurs. Sharp, quick, cutting. That's the kid from the pool video. I heard he tried to drown his sister. He's a psycho. A few students avoided eye contact. Others stared too long. Some just moved away instinctively, as if danger followed him through the hallway. In the cafeteria, no one sat next to him. Not even by accident. He was labeled, exposed and completely alone. The school counselor gave him a reserved smile, but didn't push. No one wanted to say the wrong thing, but they didn't say the right things either. At pickup, Maya's stepmom stood with 2 women she barely knew from PTA meetings. They wore matching expressions, part concern, part curiosity. I saw the clip, one of them said, not asking for permission. It's awful. You okay? I'm fine, she replied coolly. The second leaned in. Do you feel safe with him in the house? The question wasn't accidental, it was loaded. She didn't answer right away, because she didn't owe them anything. But what stung was knowing this wasn't about safety. It was about difference, about Maya being black, about Jake being white. about how complicated that looked to people who only saw in absolutes. As she walked away, one whispered loud enough to be heard, "Blended families always have problems." Online, the conversation had shifted. The original video had been reposted hundreds of times, clipped, remixed, paired with dramatic music. Some creators were outraged. This isn't just a mistake, this is intent. What if there hadn't been a camera? Would they still be protecting him? Others pushed back. He's 12. Hurt people hurt people. We've all made unthinkable mistakes. Don't cancel a child. Counsel him. The debate didn't stop at the action. It turned into race. If Maya was white, would this story even go viral? If Jake was black, would he already be in juvie? Everyone was talking, but few were listening. Jake wasn't just navigating guilt anymore. He was navigating a reputation. At recess, he stood near the basketball court, watching a game he used to be part of. No one asked him to play. A few glances, some stares, then one kid muttered loud enough to sting, "Don't fall near him, you might get pushed in something." Jake walked away before they could laugh, but it followed him. That label, that assumption, like he hadn't changed, like he couldn't. Meanwhile, his stepmom met an old friend for coffee, someone who had been warm before but now stirred her cup with judgment in her tone. "You're stronger than me," the woman said with a smile too tight. "I couldn't keep a child like that in my home." "He's not just a child like that," she replied, careful not to raise her voice. The woman leaned in, voice dropping. "But don't you think his actions say something deeper? Something?" Hidden behind the concern was the assumption that violence lived closer to Maya, because of her identity. That blended meant broken. That Jake's mistake somehow disqualified him from the right to grow. She placed her cup down carefully. "What he did was wrong," she said. "But reducing a child to a moment, that's not healing, that's erasure." Her friend didn't have a reply, because most people didn't want dialogue. They wanted certainty, and this family wasn't simple enough to satisfy that. Later that week, Jake's dad picked Maya up from a birthday party. As she ran toward the car, one of the other dads clapped a hand on his shoulder. "You doing okay, man?" he asked. Jake's dad gave a polite nod. "I mean," the man continued, "you're raising someone else's daughter and trying to clean up your own son's mess. That's a lot." Jake's dad stiffened. Maya looked up, sensing the change. "She's not someone else's daughter," he said, voice steady. "She's mine. And Jake, he's still my son." The man chuckled awkwardly and stepped back. But the words stuck, because people had decided who belonged in that family, and who didn't, before ever asking a single question. The opinions kept piling up. Online polls, reaction videos, commentary threads. But through the noise, the family held on to one truth. They were still here. Not perfect, not untouched, but still together. And that, more than any tweet or whisper, meant something. By the third week, the family had stopped reading the comments. But the comments didn't stop. Even when they weren't online, the opinions found them, through passive remarks, loaded glances, and half-hearted questions masked as concern. But one evening, as the three of them sat around the kitchen table finishing dinner, Maya asked something unexpected. "Can we talk to people?" Jake and his stepmom looked up. "Talk to who?" his dad asked. "Everyone," she said. "The ones on the phone who think we're not a family." Her stepmom stared at her, surprised by how clearly she understood what was happening. Maya wanted her voice to be heard, not filtered through other people's edits or opinions. Hers. So they did something simple. They made a video. Not dramatic. No music. No edits. Just the four of them on the couch. Jake spoke first. "I made a mistake. A big one. And I hurt someone I love. But I'm not the same kid I was in that video." Then Maya leaned into him. "He's getting better," she said. "He plays with me again." Her stepmom followed. Families don't break because of mistakes. They break when no one wants to fix them. And finally Jake's dad said what he hadn't said publicly until then. "We're not perfect. We're blended. We're still learning. But this is our family, and we're not asking for your approval. Just your understanding." The video wasn't flashy, but it worked. Because it was real. The internet didn't unanimously forgive them. But something shifted. Some viewers apologized for past comments. Some thanked them for their honesty. Some for the first time shared their own stories. And slowly, the noise began to soften. At school, someone sat next to Jake at lunch. Didn't say much,
Didn't need to. Just sat there. That alone said everything. In a world ready to cancel, sometimes courage means staying soft enough to speak anyway. Is honesty still powerful, even when the world's already judged you? Comment yes or too late below, and stick around as the final chapter unfolds. No one told Jake to apologize. No script, no nudge, no forced moment in a counselor's office. He just knew, because healing didn't come with a checklist. It came when something inside finally stopped hiding. It was after dinner on a Thursday. Maya was in the living room, on her stomach, coloring quietly. The TV played something cheerful, but she barely looked at it. Her crayons were everywhere, scattered, messy, alive. Jake stood at the hallway entrance for what felt like an hour before he stepped in. Maya. She turned her head, then looked back down. He knelt beside her, not too close, just enough. His voice was low. I'm sorry. She didn't answer. I wasn't okay, and I didn't know how to say that. So I hurt you. That's not who I want to be. He blinked fast, trying to hold in the tears that had become far too familiar these past few weeks. Maya paused, then sat up. She looked at him, not like the kid from the video, but like the brother she remembered. Okay, she said softly. Jake's eyes widened. Okay, she nodded, picking up a crayon, then handed him one. Do you want to play now? That was it. No speech, no dramatic music, just forgiveness, the kind that only comes from kids who haven't learned how to stay angry yet. Jake picked up the crayon, not because he wanted to color, but because Maya had let him back in, and that meant everything. Their parents watched from the hallway, neither interrupted, but tears slipped from both of them anyway, because in that small quiet exchange between two kids on a rug, something bigger than blame had happened, something called grace. Later that night, they took a family photo, no filters, no forced smiles, just the four of them side by side, arms around each other, uneven but connected. A blended family, not perfect, but together. Blended families need love, not labels. Forgiveness didn't erase the past. It didn't fix every glance from a stranger, or delete the videos still floating around online. But what it did, quietly, powerfully, was give this family something they hadn't had in a long time, a shared future. Over the following days, routines began to return, but they weren't the same. Jake helped Maya zip her backpack in the mornings. She'd smile, sometimes stick a crayon in his hoodie pocket, and say, for later. He kept every one. At school, Jake still felt eyes on him, but he also started speaking up in class again, raising his hand, walking down the hallway like he deserved to be there, because for the first time in months, he believed he did. Maya ran into his arms after school now. No fear, no hesitation, just love, not the kind that forgets, but the kind that forgives and grows. Their parents noticed, in small moments, like when Jake sat down next to Maya, instead of across the room, or when Maya asked if Jake could read her a bedtime story, and Jake said yes, even though he hated reading out loud. It wasn't perfect. Sometimes Jake still shut down, sometimes Maya still flinched when he got too loud, but each time they found their way back to each other, because now they wanted to. One Sunday morning, as the family sat on the back porch, Jake looked at his dad. I'm glad you didn't give up on me, he said. His dad didn't respond with a lecture, just nodded, then said, you didn't give up either. Stepmom reached across the table and took Jake's hand. I'm proud of you, she said. Not because you messed up, but because you chose to grow. Jake didn't cry this time, he just held her hand tighter. The past didn't vanish, but it didn't define them anymore either, because they had chosen something harder. They had chosen love. It wasn't a holiday. There were no balloons, no cake, no reason to celebrate on the calendar, but that evening, something shifted. Not outside, inside, because for the first time in months, laughter returned to the house. Jake and Maya were in the living room, building something together with blocks. No instructions, just imagination. Mine has wings, Maya said. Jake added, mine has wheels, and they're best friends. She grinned. Just like us now. Jake looked at her. Yeah, just like us now. In the kitchen, their parents watched. Not intruding, just present. Every smile from Maya, every unforced moment between her and Jake, was proof that this wasn't just repair, it was rebirth. This wasn't the family they started with, it was the one they chose to become. Flawed, but real, and growing. That night, their stepmom tucked Maya into bed.
"Are we good now?" Maya asked. Her stepmom smiled. "We're better than good." Down the hall, Jake stood in the doorway of his parents' room. His dad looked up. "Yeah." Jake hesitated, then said, "Thank you for staying." His dad didn't move. He didn't need to. Always. Before bed they took another photo. No one asked for it. Jake just said, "Let's take one where no one's fake smiling." So they did. One honest photo. No perfect poses. Just real eyes, soft arms, connected hands, family. That photo would sit on the mantle next to the old ones. Not to cover up what had happened, but to add to it. To show that they didn't erase the pain. They grew from it. Together. Blended families need love, not labels, not approval, not perfection, just the courage to stay, and the strength to choose each other again and again. What makes a family? It's not just biology. It's not the name on the birth certificate or the skin tones that match. It's not about being picture perfect or never making mistakes. A family is made in the hard moments, the ones where forgiveness feels impossible, and someone chooses love anyway. Jake made a mistake that nearly tore his family apart, but Maya gave him something the internet never could, a second chance, not because he earned it overnight, but because she saw something worth saving, and because forgiveness, when real, transforms people. This isn't a story about a pool, it's a story about a push, a pause and a choice, a story about what happens when a boy who felt invisible was finally seen, not just for his worst moment, but for the work he was willing to do after. Now here's the part where you come in. We want to know, should Jake be forgiven? Comment below, yes, if you believe people can change. No, if you think some mistakes should follow us forever. There's no right answer, but your answer matters, because what you believe might just reflect what you'd hope for. If the roles were reversed, what would you do if you were Maya's parent? Would you have made the same decisions or something entirely different? Let us know in the comments. We read every single one. Like this video if you believe in second chances.
Subscribe if you want more real, raw, and emotional family stories just like this one. Share this with someone who needs to hear that forgiveness is still possible even after the unthinkable. Next up, story, Maya returns to school, and something surprising happens during show and tell. You won't believe what she brings or who she talks about. Don't miss it. Final line. No matter how your family looks from the outside, remember this, love is louder than labels, and family isn't just who you're born to, it's who you choose.